A cold wind swept through the jagged cliffs, carrying the acrid scent of smoke and fear. Beneath the gray sky, a ragged militia camp sprawled across a rocky ridge, its flickering fires casting long shadows over the barren earth. Men armed with rifles and cruel intent paced like wolves, their eyes sharp and merciless. Among them, a rough-hewn figure barked orders, his voice slicing through the tense air like a whip. At the center of the camp, a dog sat chained to a heavy post, its body trembling not from the chill, but from the raw anguish that filled the air. Its eyes, a deep amber, were wide and unblinking as they bore witness to the scene unfolding just feet away. A man, gaunt and bloodied, was dragged forward by two militants. His hands were bound, and his face bore the weight of despair. Yet there was a flicker of defiance in his gaze. The dog's low whine rose, a plaintive cry that echoed the silent terror gripping the captive. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. The leader stepped forward, drawing a jagged knife from his belt, its blade catching the firelight in a cruel gleam. He raised it high, the muscles in his arms taut with menace, ready to deliver a final, brutal message. The captive's breath hitched, the dog's growl deepened, and the militiamen tightened their grips, anticipation thick in the air. But beyond the ridge, hidden beneath the cloak of jagged rocks and twisted brush, a shadow moved with deliberate stealth. Navy SEAL Marcus Hayes crouched low, his camouflage blending seamlessly with the rugged terrain. His breath was steady, his eyes sharp as they took in the grim tableau before him. At his side, Rex, a massive Belgian Malinois with a sleek coat and keen intelligence, mirrored his master's focus, ears pricked and muscles coiled. Marcus's heart pounded, not from fear, but from the surge of urgency that came with knowing lives hung in the balance. This was not just another mission. It was a desperate rescue, one that demanded silence, precision, and unwavering resolve. The dog chained to that post was not just a witness to cruelty. It was family to the captive, a bond forged through hardship and loyalty. A sudden flicker of movement caught Marcus's eye. A slight shift in the militia's formation, a guard turning away momentarily. It was the opening they needed. He signaled to Rex, who melted into the shadows, becoming a ghost among the rocks. Marcus's fingers tightened around his rifle, the weight familiar and reassuring. Every second counted. The leader's knife descended, a swift, merciless arc aimed to sever hope itself. The dog's bark shattered the tense silence, a raw, desperate sound that seemed to echo through the canyon. The captive's eyes flew open in shock. The blade halted mid-swing as all eyes snapped toward the sudden disruption. From the darkness, Rex burst forth with lethal speed, muscles propelling him through the air as he lunged toward the nearest militant. The camp erupted into chaos. Shouts, gunfire, the pounding of boots on stone. Marcus moved with calculated efficiency, weaving through the confusion, his rifle a steady extension of his will. The shackles holding the captive clanked as Marcus worked swiftly, slicing through the bindings with a combat knife. The dog, freed from its chains, darted to its owner's side, its presence a balm amid the storm of violence. Together, they formed a fragile shield against the encroaching threat. As the militia scrambled to regroup, Marcus's voice cut through the din with calm authority. "Rex, flank left. I'm covering the extraction." The dog obeyed instantly, disappearing into the shadows to intercept reinforcements. The leader snarled, fury igniting his features. "Kill them all!" he bellowed, waving his men forward like a pack of wolves unleashed. Bullets tore through the air, the sharp cracks echoing against the cliffs. Marcus dropped low, dragging the captive behind a jagged boulder. The dog growled softly, pressing close, muscles tense and ready. Marcus's mind raced. This was no ordinary rescue. The militia's cruelty was a message, a warning to anyone who dared defy them. Failure was not an option. Through the smoke and chaos, Marcus caught a glimpse of Rex, teeth bared as he intercepted an attacker. The dog's precision was lethal, a blur of motion and determination. Marcus allowed himself a brief nod of approval, knowing that Rex was more than a partner. He was the difference between life and death. Sweat mingled with dirt on Marcus's brow as he assessed their precarious situation. The captive's breathing was ragged but steady, eyes locked on Marcus with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. The dog licked the man's face, a silent promise of protection. But the militia was regrouping faster than expected, their reinforcements closing in. Marcus's fingers flexed around the rifle. This fight had only just begun. The stakes were higher than ever, the cost of failure unimaginable. As the leader rallied his men, a sinister smile twisted his lips. He had underestimated the resolve of a man and his dog, bound by loyalty and courage. The night air thrummed with tension, the future hanging by a thread as Marcus prepared to strike back against the darkness threatening to consume them all. The first light of dawn bled slowly over the rugged peaks, casting pale gold across the jagged ridges and deep crevices of the mountain range. Hidden deep within a tangled thicket of pine and scrub, a fortified compound lay almost invisible to the untrained eye. High stone walls, topped with razor wire and guarded by watchtowers manned by vigilant sentries, encircled the compound like a fortress carved from the earth itself. The harsh, angular lines of the perimeter clashed with the wild beauty of the untamed wilderness surrounding it. Inside, the compound's heart pulsed with quiet precision. Narrow, winding paths crisscrossed between weathered buildings, their walls scarred by years of conflict and neglect. At the center stood a small command post, an unassuming structure bristling with antennas and satellite dishes, a nerve center for operations that stretched far beyond the mountains. Crouched in the shadow of a crumbling rock face, Navy SEAL Marcus Hayes surveyed the compound through the lenses of his binoculars. His jaw was set, eyes sharp with unwavering focus. Beside him, Rex, his loyal Belgian Malinois, crouched low, muscles taut like coiled springs. The dog's ears flicked at every distant sound. The crunch of gravel, the murmur of voices carried on the wind, the metallic click of weapons being readied. Marcus's breath was steady, his every sense attuned to the rhythm of the compound. He knew this place well, not just its physical layout, but the currents of danger running beneath the surface. Years of training and deployments had honed his instincts, each mission adding layers to his understanding of how to move unseen, undetected. Rex nudged Marcus's hand with his nose, a silent reminder of their bond forged through countless operations. The dog was more than a partner. He was an extension of Marcus's will, a guardian and a friend. Together, they had faced the unforgiving crucible of combat, surviving where many would fall. Their connection was a language without words, a trust built in the crucible of shared danger. Marcus shifted his weight, eyes narrowing as he traced the paths of patrols weaving through the compound. The militia's presence was palpable. Guards moved with mechanical precision, their rifles slung but ready, their faces hardened by years of brutal conflict. The compound was a nest of vipers, each man a threat waiting to strike. He allowed himself a moment to reflect on the stakes. This was no simple extraction. It was a mission layered with complexity and peril. The captive they had rescued, the man chained beside the dog during the execution attempt, was a key informant, a source of invaluable intelligence. His knowledge could unravel the militia's plans, disrupt their operations, and save countless lives. But it was not just strategy that drove Marcus. There was a personal thread woven through this mission. The bond between the captive and his dog was unmistakable. The animal's trauma mirrored the human suffering, a shared ordeal that had forged an unbreakable connection. Marcus understood that loyalty in battle extended beyond men. It embraced those who stood by their side, silent and steadfast. A soft rustle nearby brought Marcus's gaze to a narrow trail winding up the slope. Rex's ears pricked, his body tensing as he caught a scent carried on the breeze. Marcus lifted a gloved finger, signaling the dog to hold. They melted further into the shadows themselves, in a world of suspicion and violence. Minutes stretched like hours as they observed the compound's rhythms, guards changing shifts, vehicles rumbling into position, static-filled radio transmissions crackling with coded urgency. Marcus cataloged every detail, piecing together a mental map that would guide their approach. The camp's isolation was both a shield and a trap. Nestled among steep cliffs and dense forest, it was nearly impossible to reach without being detected. Yet, this remoteness was precisely why the militia had chosen it. A fortress forged by nature and fortified by ruthless men. Marcus crouched lower, scanning the horizon beyond the compound. The mountains fell away into valleys shrouded in mist, a labyrinth of terrain that could either aid their escape or become a deadly maze. The only certainty was the need for absolute caution. Rex shifted beside him, a low growl rumbling from deep within his chest. Marcus's hand moved instinctively to the dog's collar, feeling the steady beat of his partner's heart. They shared a silent understanding. The mission required patience, precision, and above all, trust. As dawn broke fully, casting sharp light across the rocky outcrops, Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of calm. His mind replayed the events of the night, the desperate rescue, the fleeting chaos, the raw courage that had seen them through. But the mission was far from over. He glanced down at Rex, eyes meeting in a moment charged with unspoken promise. Together, they would navigate the dangers ahead. Through hostile terrain, guarded strongholds, and the shadows of betrayal. The bond between them was a weapon as sharp as any blade, a shield against the darkness closing in. With a final sweep of the compound, Marcus began to move, his body flowing with the grace of a predator stalking its prey. Rex matched his pace, muscles rippling beneath a sleek coat, eyes bright with focus. The mountains held their secrets tightly, but Marcus and Rex were relentless. They would find their way through the wilderness of danger to the heart of the enemy's lair. The air was crisp and biting, filled with the scent of pine and earth. But beneath it all lay the metallic tang of tension and imminent conflict. Every step forward was a step deeper into a world where survival depended on skill, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his dog. Marcus's voice broke the silence, low and steady. "Stay close, Rex. We move on my mark." The dog's tail flicked once in acknowledgement, a silent pact sealed between partners. Together, they vanished into the brush, shadows merging with shadows, ready to face whatever awaited them within the isolated compound, hidden among the mountains. Twilight draped the mountains in a muted veil as Marcus and Rex advanced cautiously through the dense underbrush bordering the militia compound. The fading light filtered through the tangled branches, casting fractured shadows that danced with every movement. The air was thick with anticipation, and the faint scent of smoke mingled with the earthy aroma of pine needles crushed underfoot. Marcus's eyes scanned the terrain ahead, sharp and unyielding, while Rex's nose twitched, catching subtle scents carried by the evening breeze. The dog's body was low, muscles coiled like a spring, ready to release. Every sense was tuned to the faintest hint of danger or hope. A soft crack echoed through the trees, a twig snapping underfoot, causing Marcus to freeze mid-step. He signaled for Rex to halt, the dog's ears flattening as he pressed close to his handler. The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the distant murmur of militia voices carried faintly across the clearing. They moved slowly, shadows among shadows, edging closer to the source of the voices. Marcus's grip tightened on his rifle, the weight of familiar comfort in the uncertainty. A faint glow spilled from a makeshift fire pit ahead, revealing rough figures seated in a tight circle, their faces hard and unreadable in the firelight. But it was what Marcus spotted just beyond the fire that sent a jolt through him. A dog, chained and trembling, its eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. The animal was tethered to a heavy post, forced to watch as a gaunt man, bound and bruised, was dragged toward what looked like an execution site just beyond the compound's edge. The captive's face, pale and streaked with dirt and dried blood, met Marcus's gaze for a fleeting moment. A silent plea, a flicker of desperate hope. The dog's low whine rose, a mournful sound that cut through the camp's rough chatter. Marcus's heart clenched at the sight. The man and his dog, bound together by fate and suffering, trapped in a nightmare orchestrated by merciless hands. He crouched lower, signaling Rex with a subtle movement. The dog melted into the shadows, eyes gleaming as he stalked forward, a ghost among the rocks. Marcus followed, moving with deliberate stealth, every muscle taut, every breath measured. The distance closed rapidly, but so did the danger. The captive's captors were oblivious to the approaching threat, their attention consumed by the grim ceremony unfolding. Marcus counted the militia, armed, alert, and brutal in their resolve. The stakes were impossibly high. One misstep could ignite a deadly firefight with deadly consequences. Rex halted beside the chained dog, nose brushing against the animal's fur in a gesture of reassurance. The captive's dog responded with a tentative wag, a flicker of recognition that sparked hope in Marcus's chest. This bond was their strongest weapon. Marcus's eyes flicked to the execution site, a crude platform fashioned from timber and stone, stained dark from past atrocities. The captive was yanked forward, the knife-wielding leader stepping into the firelight, his silhouette monstrous against the flickering flames. The tension snapped, like a taut wire as Marcus made his move. He signaled Rex to create a diversion. The dog's growl rumbled low and menacing as he lunged toward the nearest guard, teeth bared and eyes blazing. Chaos erupted instantly. Shouts, curses, and the sharp bark of gunfire shattered the uneasy calm. Marcus sprinted forward, weaving through the madness with practiced precision. His knife flashed as he cut through the bindings on the captive's wrists, the man gasping as freedom rushed back like a tide. The dog at the post strained against his chain, barking frantically, desperate to join the fray. The militia scrambled to regroup, their disciplined formation fracturing under the sudden assault. Marcus grabbed the captive's arm, pulling him behind a rocky outcrop as bullets tore through the air. Rex intercepted another attacker, driving him back with relentless ferocity. Breath ragged but eyes fierce, Marcus assessed their precarious position. The captive's dog was free now, racing to his side, tail wagging despite the danger. The man's voice was hoarse but urgent as he whispered, "They want to send a message. Kill anyone who talks, anyone who helps us." Marcus nodded grimly, understanding the brutal calculus that had led to this execution setup. The militia's cruelty was a weapon, wielded to silence resistance and spread terror. But Marcus was no stranger to such darkness. He had faced it before, and he would not let it claim these lives today. The distant sound of reinforcements approaching jolted Marcus back to the present. Time was slipping away. "We move now," he commanded, voice low but firm. The captive nodded, gathering strength from the sudden promise of rescue. With Rex leading the way, The trio slipped through the shadows, navigating the treacherous terrain with a mixture of urgency and caution. Every step was a gamble, the enemy close behind, their shouts growing louder like a storm on the horizon. Marcus's mind raced, plans formed and shifted with each heartbeat. They needed to disappear into the wilderness, evade patrols, and find sanctuary before the militia's wrath could descend upon them. But first, they had to survive the immediate danger. Rex stayed vigilant, ears swiveling, teeth bared at every sound. The dog was more than a protector. He was a lifeline, a beacon of hope in a world darkened by violence. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settle squarely on his shoulders. To keep the man and his dog alive, to honor the bond that had endured so much. As the last light faded behind the mountains, Marcus led the way, shadows swallowed by the encroaching night. The path ahead was fraught with peril, but they moved with purpose, driven by the unyielding will to survive and the promise of freedom just beyond the horizon. Night had swallowed the mountain ridge whole, transforming the rocky outcrop into a landscape of shifting shadows and whispered threats. The militia camp, once alive with the harsh glow of firelight and the gruff voices of armed men, now lurked in a tense, uncertain silence. Somewhere beyond the darkness, reinforcements were closing in, their footsteps muffled but relentless. Marcus crouched behind a jagged boulder, pulse steady but mind racing. The captive, thin, bruised, but defiant, pressed close beside him, the dog weaving between them with protective vigilance. The faint glow of a distant campfire flickered like a warning beacon, illuminating the peril they had just escaped and the danger that still pursued them. Marcus's eyes locked on the nearby cluster of militiamen, their patrol weaving slow circles around the perimeter. He could hear the scrape of boots on gravel, the whispered commands in rough voices, and the faint metallic clink of weapons being readied. Time was slipping away. Their window to escape was closing fast. A subtle shift in the captive's posture caught Marcus's attention. The man's gaze flicked toward the chained dog they had freed moments before, now pacing anxiously at his side. Marcus's jaw tightened. That bond, the invisible tether between man and dog, was their greatest strength and their most fragile hope. With a flick of his wrist, Marcus signaled Rex. The Belgian Malinois melted into the darkness, moving like a shadow born from the night itself. The dog's muscles rippled beneath his sleek coat as he circled wide, seeking the best moment to strike. Marcus turned his attention back to the captive's bindings, the rough cord still wrapped tightly around his wrists. Time was precious, but so was precision. With practiced ease, Marcus drew a combat knife from his belt, the blade gleaming faintly in the moonlight. His fingers worked swiftly, cutting through the restraints with silent efficiency. The captive's breath hitched as freedom slipped back to his hands. "Thank you," he whispered, voice hoarse but sincere. His eyes, though battered, held a spark of hope that fueled Marcus's resolve. Suddenly, a twig snapped behind them. Marcus froze, every nerve electrified. A figure loomed out of the shadows, a militia scout, eyes wild with alarm. Rex lunged without hesitation, teeth flashing as he brought the man down in a blur of motion and sound. The scout's cry was cut short, swallowed by the night. Chaos erupted as the militia scrambled to respond. Shouts rang out, orders barked with urgency. Marcus grabbed the captive's arm, pulling him to his feet. "Move, now!" The dog at their side growled low, muscles coiled and ready. Marcus led them through a narrow defile, the terrain twisting sharply beneath their feet. Bullets spat behind them, kicking up dust and shattering stone, but Marcus's focus never wavered. His years of training guided every step, calculated, efficient, lethal. As they slipped deeper into the darkness, Marcus signaled Rex again. The dog darted ahead, blocking a squad of militiamen rushing to intercept. Rex's snarls and swift attacks created a protective barrier, buying precious seconds for Marcus and the captive to escape. The narrow canyon opened onto a steep slope, jagged rocks and loose gravel threatening every foothold. Marcus helped the captive navigate the treacherous path, urging him forward with quiet determination. The dog stayed close, alert to every sound, every movement. Above them, the militia regrouped, frustration and fury etched into their faces. Their leader cursed the night and the audacity of the escape, promising swift retribution. But Marcus knew better. The darkness was their ally now, a cloak to shield them from the storm of violence. Reaching a small outcrop overlooking the valley below, Marcus paused to catch his breath. The captive leaned heavily against a rock, exhaustion evident in every line of his body. Rex circled them, alert but calm, his amber eyes reflecting a fierce loyalty. Marcus's mind raced. They were far from safe, but this moment allowed for a brief reprieve, a chance to plan the next move, to gather strength for the journey ahead. The captive's voice broke the silence. "They'll come for us, with more men, more firepower." "I know," Marcus replied softly, "but we're not done yet. We'll find a way through." The bond between the man and his dog was palpable, a silent testament to resilience amid despair. Marcus felt a surge of respect and urgency. Their survival depended not only on tactics and firepower, but on trust and unity. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small first aid kit. As he tended to the captive's wounds, his thoughts turned to the broader mission: to dismantle the militia's hold over the region and protect those caught in the crossfire. Rex settled beside them, resting his head on the captive's knee. The dog's steady presence was a balm, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, loyalty and courage endured. Marcus's gaze swept the horizon, the first pale hues of dawn beginning to chase away the night. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger. But for now, they had each other, and that was enough to keep moving forward. A sudden rustle from the bushes snapped Marcus's attention back to the present. He raised a hand, signaling silence. Rex's ears twitched, alert to the approaching presence. From the shadows emerged a slender figure, a local guide, her eyes sharp and wary. "I can help," she whispered, voice barely audible. "But we must move quickly. They're sending more patrols." Marcus exchanged a look with the captive, then nodded. The stakes had risen, but so had their chances. With allies new and old, and the unbreakable bond between man and dog, they would face the coming storm together. As they prepared to disappear into the wilderness once more, Marcus's heart beat steady with resolve. The rescue was underway, and failure was not an option. The cold night air bit through the thin fabric of Marcus's jacket as he settled into a shallow hollow carved by years of wind and erosion. Around him, the dense forest whispered with the subtle sounds of nocturnal life. Rustling leaves, distant hoots, and the steady breathing of his companions. Rex lay close at his feet, muscles relaxed but eyes alert, a sentinel guarding against unseen threats. The captive, though visibly shaken and battered, leaned against a fallen log, the slow rhythm of his breathing a fragile beacon of life amid the darkness. The immediate danger of the malicious assault had passed, but the threat lingered like a shadow, pressing down with relentless weight. Marcus's fingers moved deftly over the captive's wounds, cleaning cuts and bruises with sterile precision. The man winced but said nothing, the stoic resolve in his eyes speaking volumes. The dog sat close, nuzzling the man's hand, offering silent comfort that transcended words. Marcus glanced toward the edge of the forest, where faint glimmers of distant patrol fires flickered like restless ghosts. Reinforcements were still combing the area, their search patterns methodical and unforgiving. Every minute counted, and yet, here in this fragile moment, Marcus allowed himself a breath, calm, measured, necessary. The captive's voice broke the silence, low and hoarse. They wanted to make an example, not just me, anyone who dares to speak, to help the resistance. His gaze darkened, haunted by memories of betrayal and violence. They don't just kill. They want to instill fear. Marcus nodded, the weight of those words settling deep in his chest. He had seen this kind of cruelty before, calculated, merciless, designed to crush hope. But the man's survival was a spark against that darkness, a chance to turn the tide. Rex shifted, his body tense for just a moment before settling once more. Marcus reached out, running a hand over the dog's sleek coat. The bond between the three of them was palpable, a silent pact forged in adversity and trust. The dog's loyalty was unwavering, a living testament to the resilience that Marcus himself clung to. Suddenly, a rustle in the underbrush snapped everyone to attention. Marcus's hand went to his rifle, eyes scanning the shadows. From the darkness emerged the local guide they had met earlier, a woman with sharp eyes and cautious movements. Her arrival was swift, almost ghost-like, and she carried with her a quiet urgency. "We don't have much time," she whispered. "The militia's reinforcements are spreading out. We need to move before they tighten the net." Her gaze flicked to the captive, then to Marcus, a silent plea for trust. Marcus assessed her quickly. Her knowledge of the terrain was an asset they couldn't afford to lose. He nodded. "We're ready." Together, the small group rose from their refuge. The forest seemed to close around them, the canopy above swallowing the pale light of the stars. Every step was deliberate, measured against the threat that lurked. Beyond the trees, the captive leaned heavily on Marcus, his strength sapped but determination intact. Rex led the way, nose to the ground, vigilant and unyielding. As they moved deeper into the wilderness, Marcus's mind replayed the events that had brought them here. The desperate rescue, the narrow escape, the quiet moments of healing. Each memory was a thread weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. The guide's path led them through narrow ravines and over moss-covered stones, terrain that would challenge even the most seasoned warrior. Yet Marcus felt the familiar rush of purpose, the clarity that came with knowing every step could mean the difference between life and death. At one point, the guide paused, signaling silence. Ahead, the faint glow of campfires pierced the darkness. Militia patrols searching for the fugitives. Marcus crouched low, pressing the captive down beside him, while Rex's growls rumbled softly in warning. With a sharp gesture, the guide pointed to a narrow ravine veiled by thick brush, a hidden route that promised safety but demanded caution. Marcus considered the risks, then gave a curt nod. They would take it. The passage was treacherous, steep, and slippery, but it shielded them from prying eyes and the thunderous footsteps of their pursuers. The captive's breath came in shallow gasps, but his grip on Marcus's arm tightened, a silent vow to endure. Hours later, as the first light of dawn bled into the sky, the group reached a secluded clearing. The air was cool and fresh, the scent of pine and earth a balm after the claustrophobic forest. Here, Marcus allowed himself a moment to assess their situation. The captive's wounds were serious but stable. Marcus had done all he could with limited supplies. The dog, though exhausted, remained alert, tail wagging faintly in a rare moment of calm. The guide scanned the horizon, eyes sharp for any sign of danger. Marcus pulled the captive aside, lowering his voice. We need to find a secure location, somewhere to regroup, to plan our next move. The man nodded, grateful but wary. There's an old bunker nearby, abandoned but fortified. It could work. Relief flickered in Marcus's chest. A safe haven was exactly what they needed. He signaled Rex, who responded instantly, bounding ahead to scout the perimeter. The dog's keen senses would be their first line of defense. As they approached the bunker, the shadows lengthened, wrapping the structure in a cloak of mystery and history. The heavy metal door groaned as Marcus forced it open, revealing darkness within. The stale air carried the scent of dust and disuse, but it was shelter, a fortress against the encroaching world. Inside, Marcus set to work, lighting a small lantern and organizing their sparse supplies. The captive sank onto a cot, exhaustion pulling him under like a tide. Rex curled at his feet, ever vigilant. Marcus allowed himself a moment to breathe, the silence pressing in around him. Outside, the forest whispered secrets, the distant sounds of the militia a reminder that the fight was far from over. But here, in this hidden refuge, hope held firm. The captive was alive, the dog was safe, and Marcus's resolve burned brighter than ever. Together, they would face the coming storm, united by loyalty, courage, and the unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of survival. The dim glow of a single lantern cast flickering shadows against the cold concrete walls of the bunker. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and stale metal, a silent witness to countless days and nights spent in hiding. Marcus sat opposite the captive, their faces illuminated by the soft, wavering light. Rex rested nearby, alert but calm, his amber eyes reflecting the weight of the moment. The captive's hands trembled slightly as he unfolded a crumpled, worn map onto the metal table between them. Lines and markings traced routes and locations, each one carrying significance and danger. His voice was low but steady as he began to speak, threading words together with a cautious urgency. "They call themselves the Black Vultures," he said, eyes flicking toward Marcus. "A militia born from chaos and greed. Their reach extends far beyond these mountains. They control supply routes, weapon caches, and even corrupt officials. Their power feeds on fear." Marcus listened intently, absorbing every detail. The captive's story was a puzzle piece, fitting into a larger, darker picture. The militia's brutality was not random. It was calculated, a means to cement control and silence dissent. The execution attempt Marcus had witnessed was just one thread in a web of terror. "They're preparing for something bigger," the captive continued, tracing a finger along a marked location on the map. "A shipment of arms, high-grade explosives. If it reaches the city, the violence will escalate beyond anything we've seen. Entire neighborhoods will burn." Marcus's jaw tightened. The stakes had escalated, the mission transforming from rescue to prevention. The captive's betrayal had come at a high price. His own partner had led the militia to him, a traitor within the resistance. Trust was a rare commodity in this shadow war. Rex shifted, pressing his head against the captive's knee as if to offer reassurance. The dog's unwavering presence was a balm amid the bleakness, a reminder that loyalty could endure even in the darkest times. Marcus leaned forward, voice low and resolute. "We need evidence, proof of their operations, something that can expose them and bring help." The captive nodded, a flicker of hope breaking through the weariness. "There's a master server," he said, eyes dark with memory. "Hidden in the compound's command center. It holds records, transactions, communications, supply routes. If we can access it, we can dismantle their network." The room seemed to shrink around them, the weight of the task pressing down like the cold stone outside. Marcus's mind raced. This was no longer just about survival. It was about justice, about stopping a machine of destruction before it could roll further. A sudden movement at the bunker's entrance drew their attention. The local guide, her face etched with determination, stepped inside, closing the heavy door behind her. "We've intercepted radio chatter," she reported quietly. "They're increasing patrols, tightening security. They know something's wrong." Marcus exchanged a glance with the captive. Time was slipping away. Every moment spent hidden was a moment the militia grew stronger, more dangerous. The plan had to move forward. He stood, stretching the stiffness from his limbs. "We'll need to move soon. Infiltrate the command center, download the data, and get out before they know what hit them." The captive swallowed hard, the weight of his role settling heavily on his shoulders. "I know the layout," he said. "I can guide you, if we can trust each other." Marcus's gaze was steady, unyielding. "Trust is earned, but right now, we need to depend on each other." Rex barked softly, as if affirming the pact. As the night deepened, the group gathered their sparse equipment, preparing for the perilous mission ahead. The bunker's silence was a fragile veil over the storm to come, but within its walls, a spark of defiance burned bright. Marcus glanced once more at the captive and the dog, the survivors bound by shared trauma and unbreakable loyalty. Together, they would face the darkness, ready to strike at the heart of the enemy and reclaim hope from the shadows. The first rays of dawn crept cautiously over the jagged mountain ridges as Marcus, the captive, and Rex slipped silently through the dense thicket that bordered the militia compound. The forest was a maze of twisted roots and moss-covered stones, shadows stretching long and thin in the early light. Each step was deliberate, a careful dance between urgency and stealth. The weight of their mission pressed heavily on Marcus's shoulders, but his movements remained fluid, practiced, born of years navigating hostile terrain. Rex moved ahead, nose low to the ground, alert to every scent and sound. His ears twitched at distant murmurs carried by the breeze, voices, footsteps, the faint hum of engines awakening. Marcus's hand hovered near his rifle, ready to act, but unwilling to break the fragile silence that cloaked their progress. The captive winced as he adjusted his grip on the makeshift sling supporting his wounded arm. His breath was shallow, but his eyes burned with determination. Marcus glanced at him, offering a nod that spoke volumes. No words were needed. They were tethered by a shared resolve: to survive, to expose the militia's dark network, to stop the impending shipment of weapons. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the underbrush. A twig snapped beneath, heavy boots. Marcus froze, instincts flaring. He pressed the captive down behind a low boulder, fingers signaling Rex to hold. The dog's growl rumbled low, a warning to the unseen threat. From the shadows emerged two armed militia patrols, rifles raised, scanning the forest with cold eyes. Marcus's heart hammered, but his face remained a mask of calm. He counted their movements, noting the patterns of their patrol, the gaps between their steps. The first patrol swept past, oblivious to the trio's presence. The second moved closer, voices hushed but tense. Marcus weighed his options. A direct confrontation would be suicide. Stealth was their only ally. He motioned to Rex, who melted into the shadows, slipping behind the patrol like a wraith. The dog's sudden bark shattered the quiet, drawing the soldiers' attention. A brief scuffle erupted, Rex's teeth flashing as he incapacitated one guard with swift precision. The other fired a warning shot, then fled into the trees. Marcus seized the moment, pulling the captive to his feet. "Move. Now." They slipped through the undergrowth, hearts pounding, breath ragged. The compound loomed ahead, a fortress of stone and steel nestled among the peaks. Marcus's mind raced, recalling the captive's descriptions of the command center, the nerve hub housing the master server. Every detail was etched in his memory. The layout, the security protocols, the blind spots. Navigating the perimeter under the cover of thick fog, they approached a maintenance hatch obscured by vines and debris. Marcus pried it open silently, descending a narrow staircase into the bowels of the compound's infrastructure. The stale air was heavy with the scent of machinery and oil, a stark contrast to the wild forest above. The captive led the way, his knowledge guiding them through a labyrinth of corridors and dimly lit rooms. Marcus's senses were heightened, every sound amplified. The hum of servers, distant footsteps, the faint click of locks disengaging. Rex stayed close, muscles coiled, eyes sharp. Reaching the server room, Marcus crouched beside a console, fingers moving swiftly to bypass security measures. The captive glanced nervously toward the door, tension crackling in the air. Time was their enemy. Every second increased the risk of discovery. A progress bar inched forward as Marcus worked, sweat beading on his brow. Suddenly, the distant clatter of boots echoed, a patrol approaching. Marcus's heart pounded. He whispered, "Almost there, Rex. Stay ready." The door handle rattled. Marcus's eyes flicked to the captive, and then to the screen. The download was near completion. The door burst open. 2 guards stormed in, weapons drawn. Rex erupted into action, a blur of fury and precision. The dog's teeth found their mark, incapacitating 1 guard before the second swung his rifle with deadly intent. Marcus dove aside, firing a controlled burst that sent the attacker sprawling. The captive scrambled to his feet, clutching his arm, eyes wide with fear and determination. Download complete. Marcus muttered urgently, yanking the storage device free. "We move now." They dashed through the corridors, alarms blaring behind them, red lights flashing like warning signals. The compound was alive with chaos. Soldiers shouting orders, footsteps pounding, gunfire crackling. Rex led the charge, clearing the path with calculated ferocity. Marcus supported the captive, guiding him through the maze of danger. Every corner held a potential threat. Every second counted. Emerging into the fading daylight, they sprinted toward the forest's edge. Militia reinforcements flooded the compound grounds, their shouts filling the air with fury and frustration. Marcus's breaths were ragged, muscles screaming. But the mission pressed him onward. The dog barked sharply, fending off pursuers, buying precious moments. They slipped into the dense woods, branches whipping past, roots threatening to trip them. The captive stumbled but held on, driven by sheer will. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a hidden ravine. Marcus paused, scanning the horizon. The militia had lost their trail. For now. He looked down at the captive, who managed a weary smile. "We did it," he whispered. Rex nuzzled the man's hand, a silent pledge of protection. Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of relief, knowing the fight was far from over. The evidence they carried was a weapon, a chance to unravel the militia's grip and ignite a spark of justice. But for now, survival was their priority. Together, man and dog, they vanished into the wilderness. Shadows among shadows, relentless and unbroken. Night had fallen like a heavy curtain over the rugged mountain landscape, as Marcus, the captive, Rex, and the local guide moved cautiously through the dense forest. The trees stood as silent sentinels, their dark silhouettes blending into the shadows, while a cold wind whispered through the branches, carrying with it the distant echoes of militia patrols combing the area. Every step they took was measured, the crunch of leaves beneath their boots muffled by careful placement. Marcus's mind was a whirl of strategy and caution. The downloaded data from the militia's master server was a critical prize, but it also painted a target on their backs. The enemy's net was tightening, their reach extending into every crevice of the mountains and beyond. Trust was scarce, and alliances even scarcer. Yet, as they pressed deeper into the wilderness, a new hope flickered, a promise of an unexpected ally. The guide's eyes scanned the darkness ahead, sharp and alert. "There's someone you need to meet," she said in a hushed tone, glancing over her shoulder to ensure they weren't being followed. "A man inside the militia who's grown tired of the bloodshed. He's risking everything to help us." Marcus raised an eyebrow but said nothing, the weight of years of betrayal making him wary of sudden alliances. Still, the offer was too valuable to dismiss. They needed inside information, someone who could navigate the militia's labyrinthian operations and expose weaknesses. After what felt like hours weaving through the tangled underbrush, they reached a secluded clearing bathed in the pale light of the moon. There, concealed beneath a camouflaged tarp, was a small encampment, sparse but meticulously organized. A solitary figure stepped forward from the shadows, his face partially obscured by a worn scarf and the hood of a faded jacket. Marcus's gaze locked onto the man, assessing every detail, the hardened eyes, the cautious stance, the flicker of resolve. "I'm Elias," the stranger introduced himself quietly. "Used to be one of them. Not anymore." Elias's voice carried the weight of secrets and regrets. He explained how he had grown disillusioned with the militia's ruthless tactics, witnessing firsthand the suffering inflicted on innocents and the betrayal within their own ranks. His decision to become a mole was born of conscience and desperation. He produced a small device, a recorder loaded with intercepted communications and a series of encrypted files. "This contains proof of their upcoming operations," Elias said. "Supply routes, weapon shipments, even the names of collaborators. If we can get this to the right people, it could cripple them." Marcus took the device, feeling the gravity of the moment settle over him. The stakes had just risen exponentially. Trusting Elias was a risk, but the potential reward was undeniable. As they strategized late into the night, Elias revealed critical details about the militia's internal structure. Deckard Ryan, a former operative turned logistics coordinator, had been orchestrating the flow of arms and resources. His tight control over the network made him a formidable adversary, but also a potential weak link if approached correctly. Marcus outlined a plan to infiltrate the militia's stronghold at the airfield where a major shipment was scheduled. The goal was clear: retrieve further evidence, rescue any captives, and dismantle the supply chain. The group moved with renewed purpose, their footsteps light but determined. Rex stayed close to Marcus, eyes gleaming with focus, ready to face whatever dangers lay ahead. The captive, though still recovering, showed a quiet strength, bolstered by the knowledge they were not alone. Elias's insider knowledge had shifted the balance. They now had a chance to strike at the heart of the militia's operations, to transform shadows into light. But the path was fraught with peril. Every step deeper into enemy territory increased the risk of exposure and betrayal. As dawn approached, the group found temporary refuge in an abandoned cabin nestled between towering pines. The first light filtered through cracked windows, casting long beams across the worn floorboards. Marcus sat quietly, reviewing the intelligence with Elias, mapping out the infiltration route. Outside, the forest stirred with life awakening. But inside the cabin, a tension hung thick, a blend of hope, fear, and the unyielding will to see justice done. Marcus glanced at the captive and Rex, their presence a steadying force amidst the storm. He knew the coming days would test them all, physically, mentally, emotionally. But with allies like Elias and the unbreakable bond they shared, there was a chance to turn the tide. The mission was no longer just survival. It was a fight for redemption, for truth, and for the countless lives caught in the militia's merciless grip. And as the team prepared to move out, Marcus's resolve hardened. They would face the darkness together, unyielding and unstoppable. The night air was thick with tension as Marcus, Elias, the captive, and Rex approached the airfield nestled in the valley below. The compound lay sprawled before them, a maze of hangars, storage sheds, and armed guards patrolling with ruthless vigilance beneath floodlights that cut swaths through the darkness. The distant hum of engines and the metallic clang of machinery echoed like a heartbeat, steady and ominous. Marcus's eyes narrowed, calculating every movement, every shadow. The intel Elias provided had been invaluable. Routes mapped, guard rotations timed, weak points identified. But the mission was far from simple. The militia's grip was ironclad here. Any misstep could ignite a deadly firefight. Rex padded silently at Marcus's side, muscles coiled and ready. The dog's keen senses were vital, detecting threats before they emerged from the shadows. The captive, though still recovering, moved with a determined grit, his eyes reflecting the weight of the stakes. They slipped through the perimeter under the cover of darkness, weaving between watchful sentries and the harsh glare of searchlights. Elias's insider knowledge guided them, whispering directions that cut through the chaos like a thread of hope. Reaching the command center, a nondescript building fortified with reinforced steel and electronic locks, Marcus crouched low, pulling out a compact toolkit. His fingers danced over the controls, bypassing security with practiced ease. The door hissed open, revealing a dimly lit interior humming with the pulse of servers and communication devices. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The group moved swiftly, shadows among shadows, toward the mainframe, housing the militia's critical data. Marcus connected a portable device, initiating a download of files that could dismantle the militia's operations. Suddenly, an alarm blared, a shrill, penetrating sound that shattered the fragile silence. The compound erupted into chaos as guards scrambled, weapons drawn, shouting orders that echoed through the corridors. Rex growled low, baring teeth as the first wave of militia soldiers burst into the room. Marcus's rifle barked in response, precise and controlled, taking down threats with lethal efficiency. The captive ducked behind a console, clutching his wounded arm, eyes wide with fear, but resolute. Elias grabbed a sidearm, firing in tandem with Marcus, their coordinated defense buying precious seconds. But the enemy was relentless, pushing forward with brutal determination. In the chaos, a shadow moved. A tall, imposing figure with cold eyes and a cruel smile. Kale, the militia's infamous enforcer, stepped into the fray, his weapon trained on the captive. Marcus's heart hammered as he saw the threat, every instinct screaming to protect. Before Marcus could react, Rex lunged with fierce loyalty, intercepting Kale's deadly aim. The dog's jaws snapped shut, taking a bullet meant for the man. A sharp yelp tore through the room as Rex collapsed, blood matted in his fur. Rage and desperation surged through Marcus. He charged, tackling Kale with raw force, wrestling the weapon from his grip. The fight was brutal, grunts and curses filling the air as Marcus fought to subdue the enforcer, fueled by the pain of Rex's sacrifice. With a final, decisive maneuver, Marcus overpowered Kale, securing him with zip ties found in a nearby drawer. The alarm continued to wail, but the immediate threat was contained. Kneeling beside Rex, Marcus's hands trembled as he assessed the dog's wounds. The loyal companion's breathing was shallow, eyes fluttering but alive. The captive reached out, voice thick with emotion. He saved me. He saved us all. Marcus wrapped Rex in his jacket, shielding him from the cold and the chaos. Every moment was critical. They needed to escape before reinforcements arrived. Elias gathered the downloaded data, securing it in a waterproof case. Supporting Rex's weakened body, Marcus led the group toward the exit, moving swiftly through corridors now flooded with militia soldiers. The captive leaned heavily on Marcus, determination etched on his face despite the pain. Outside, the night was alive, with the roar of engines and the flash of muzzle fire. The group darted into the shadows of the surrounding forest, pursued but undeterred. Marcus's focus was razor-sharp, navigating the terrain with precision born of countless missions. As they reached a hidden clearing, the tension began to ease. The sound of approaching vehicles signaled the arrival of federal agents. Alerted by an emergency beacon Elias had activated during the raid. Medical personnel rushed to Rex's side, working quickly to stabilize the brave dog whose loyalty had cost him dearly. Marcus stood guard, eyes scanning the perimeter, his heart heavy yet hopeful. The captive, now safe, looked to Marcus with profound gratitude. "Without you and Rex, I wouldn't be here." Marcus nodded solemnly, the bond forged in battle and sacrifice unbreakable. Despite the pain and loss, they had struck a critical blow against the high militia's reign. As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, Marcus allowed himself a moment to breathe, to honor the bravery of a dog who had given everything to protect those he loved. The fight was far from over, but tonight they had won a vital victory, one born of loyalty, courage, and unyielding resolve. The sterile white walls of the makeshift medical tent flickered under the harsh fluorescent lights as Marcus sat beside Rex's cot, his hand resting gently on the brave dog's flank. The rhythmic beep of monitors filled the quiet space, each pulse a fragile testament to the battle Rex had fought and survived. The air was thick with antiseptic and hope, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night before. Rex's eyes fluttered open briefly, finding Marcus's steady gaze. A weak wag of his tail was enough to ignite a surge of relief and gratitude in Marcus's chest. The bond between them had been forged in fire, sealed by loyalty and sacrifice that transcended words. Across the room, the captive, now freed from his wounds and the chains of fear, sat quietly, his eyes reflecting a mix of exhaustion and profound thankfulness. The dog's bravery had saved his life. Marcus's relentless determination had given him a chance at freedom. Together, they were more than survivors. They were a family bound by unbreakable ties. Outside, the dawn broke over the mountains, casting soft golden light through the tent's translucent fabric. The world beyond was waking, but inside, time seemed to slow, allowing a moment of healing and reflection. Marcus reached out, gently taking the captive's hand in his. "We made it through," he said softly, "because we didn't give up." The man nodded, voice thick with emotion. "Rex saved me. You saved us both. I don't know how to thank you." Marcus smiled faintly, eyes never leaving the dog who had become more than a partner. He was a hero. "No thanks needed. It's what we do." A nurse entered quietly, checking Rex's IV line and murmuring reassurances. The dog's breathing had stabilized, and though the road to recovery would be long, hope had taken root. As the day unfolded, federal agents arrived, moving swiftly to dismantle the remnants of the militia's network. The evidence Marcus and his team had secured was handed over, a weapon of truth poised to shatter the walls of corruption and fear that had long held the region captive. Marcus and the captive shared a look, unspoken vows exchanged between those who had walked through fire together. The dog's soft whimper drew their attention, and they both reached out, their hands meeting on Rex's warm fur. In that quiet room, amid the hum of healing machines and whispered prayers, a new beginning was taking shape. The scars of the past remained, but so did the strength to face what lay ahead. Marcus knew the fight was far from over. The militia's shadow still loomed, but today was a victory, a testament to courage, loyalty, and the enduring power of the bond between man and dog. As Rex's eyes closed once more, a peaceful calm settled over the room. The future stretched before them, uncertain, challenging, but filled with the promise of hope. And in the heart of the mountains, where darkness had once reigned, a new light was rising, born from sacrifice, forged in loyalty, and shining with the unbreakable spirit of survival.